It's so convenient. I love having Katie here. Okay, so everybody, thank you for being here. This meeting is recorded. And for those of you that don't know me, you know, I should stop saying it like that because I feel like I'm like Alex Trebek or something when I say it that way. It's a little bit narcissistic. Sorry. Anyways, so I'm Sarah Grillo, if we haven't met yet. There we go. See better. Anyways, thanks for being here. Now, look, if you need captioning, please click the CC at the bottom. If there are any other accommodations, such as language translation, if anybody has a disability, for this and for any other meetups, please let me know. It is always my intention to have an accommodating and open forum for people. I want to be inclusive. Okay, so please let me know. Now, just some brief announcements. This meeting is recorded. There's no AI, there's no note takers on this meeting. Immersion. If you have not signed up yet for the immersion, it's in Kansas City in March. A few of you have expressed interest. Now, I don't know if you haven't signed up yet, why haven't you signed up yet? Enter it into the chat. I'd really love to know. We're starting to do virtual networking. Part of the benefit that you get from attending the immersion is that you are paired with a group virtually and you chat every month for the 6 or however many months preceding the event. So it's not just show up and leave. This is a long-term kind of a relationship that you're developing with the people who attend the immersion. Okay, the other thing is I have created a new transparency website. If you know anybody that's interested in joining these meetups, please pass this transparency website to them. This transparency website has quite a few new features. One of the features is that there's a pairing of people who are looking to sell their practice with people who are looking to buy. It's going to be published on an anonymous basis, but it's going to be like a little bit of a matchmaker service there. Also, matchmaker service for if you're looking for a paraplanner or if you are a paraplanner. So if anybody, and if you apply, if any of these apply to you, please let me know. Now, any feedback on this movement, please go ahead and pass it to Katie. Katie works with me. Okay, so that's her email. Anything good or bad, just let us have it, you know. There are several new programs that I've launched to help you market your firms. These are designed specifically for transparent advisors like you, advice only, hourly. It's a great community. It's that we have a webinar once a month that is marketing specific. So if you want marketing tips that are specifically geared towards your business model, hourly planner, advice only planner, etc., please go ahead and sign up or at least express interest and I can let you know if the program's a good fit for you or not. Next, I just wanted to also put this out there. Okay, so if you have benefit, I have run this transparency movement for the last 3 years. If you have benefited from being on one of my directories, if a client contacted you from there, please consider making a contribution to support the resources of this movement. It's Zelle. I'm going to put this in the chat. You could send me a Zelle. $20 is fine. Okay. We're looking to expand. We are expanding this movement, and any support that you could give is welcome. PayPal address is there. If you want my address to send me a check, I'm cool with that too. Please consider supporting this movement if you've benefited. If you've been in any of my directories and had a client contact you, if you've benefited from any of my virtual meetups, if you learn things from them, please consider making a contribution. Any of the networking connections you've made with other flat fee advice only or hourly planners, any of the newsletters I've written, any of my blogs or podcasts where I interview transparent advisors, any of the regulatory work. If you're in Colorado, if you're in Washington State, we've spoken to the regulators. Please consider making a contribution to this movement. I have also had leads contact me, high net worth investors, and I have put transparent advisors in front of those folks. If you have benefited from these or any of the other resources that I and other members of this movement have provided to you, please consider supporting the movement. Like I said, we're doing an expanding through new services, websites, etc. I do not charge people for these virtual meetups. I have never charged for virtual meetups, our monthly virtual meetups. Have never, despite numerous people asking me to do that. I also have never had sponsors. I have never taken money. That's the thing I want to tell you, that people have offered me a huge amount of money. The email list is huge now. You don't see ads on there. You don't see sponsors on there. You don't see me pitching products for a kickback, all of which have been offered to me. But in the spirit of purity and transparency, I have denied them over and over, and they've been very aggressive with me. Please consider $20 or more If you're able to, and if you've benefited, if you appreciate the movement, please consider sending a donation, excuse me, a contribution. Donation is not the right word because I am not a charity. Next meetup is Hannah Moore, and I'm going to put that into the chat. Hannah Moore is going to talk with us about how to get the right resources for your firm in terms of staffing. She runs the Amplify externship. There you go. You can sign up for it right there. Go ahead, sign up for the next meetup right there. The link is in the chat, and we'll be very excited to have Hannah with us. She is lovely. And so having said that, sorry for talking so much. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm super psyched, as you can tell. Woohoo, all the way around. And I'm going to turn it over now. Jeremy, you can have the spotlight. Everybody, we should be happy to have Jeremy Snyder of Nectarine. And thank you, Jeremy, for being here.
Thank you, Sarah. Great to be here. Hi, everybody. I made a few little slides. I know a lot of these have just kind of been Q&A, but I decided to put something together since a lot of you may not know who the heck I am. And I'll try to get my Zoom set up. So yeah, hey, I'm Jeremy. Quickly on myself, I try not to talk too much about myself, but by training, I'm a software engineer. I went to college for that. I started a tech company coming out of college. I sold my first tech company when I was 36 for $5 million. Actually, that's not true. I sold when I was 34 for $5 million. There's an error in my own slides. And then I retired when I was 36, 2 years after working for the company that acquired us. And then, I kind of did nothing for a year or two. And then I started something called Personal Finance Club, which is like largely this Instagram you see here. Maybe you've seen some of our blue infographics getting shared around the internet. And I did that as like a passion project for a while and kind of turned into a small business. I am not actually a financial advisor myself. I'm not registered myself. I would consider myself a serious enthusiast and educator. I talk about learning about the basics of personal finance and investing, but I don't personally do, any sort of paid engagements or anything like that. But over the last coming on 7 years with Personal Finance Club, teaching this stuff, I would get the same question over and over, which is how do I find a good financial advisor? And, I'm among my people here because we know it's a scary world out there. I feel like I'm on the front lines because I'm talking to actual consumers, every day. These are not necessarily high net worth individuals. These aren't necessarily like Wall Street people. These are like teachers and nurses and, you know, tech employees and just regular people, sometimes people who do work on Wall Street and they don't know this stuff. And then when they talk to a financial advisor, more often than not, that financial advisor isn't a financial advisor at all. It's a commissioned insurance salesman who's trying to sell them some story about how permanent life insurance is better than their 401k, yada, yada, yada. I'm sure we've all heard the stories. That's like what's really going on out there. So when someone asks me, how do I find a good financial advisor? I'm like, let me tell you about this world out there, which is a scary world. And that led to the co-founding of Nectarine, which I'll talk about in a sec. But basically, I want to give my perspective on this world of transparent financial advice that we're in. So here's the problem. I like emojis. I'm a simple man. I tell simple stories. Here's the consumer. Here's the client. Hi, I'm looking for financial advice. This is what happens. They're like, they need to start investing, or they've got an inheritance, or they've got some special situation, or whatever it is. And then this advisor says, great, please buy life insurance because that's how I make money. This is what happens most of the time. If they're more lucky, this is what happens. They say, great, please transfer me at least $250,000 and I'll charge you 1.25% per year AUM. And, this isn't a great world for clients. You can see the consumer is sad now because she's like, okay, this doesn't sound good. That seems like a massive conflict of interest. This doesn't sound great. It sounds better, but it definitely gets expensive over time. And I was looking for advice, not necessarily someone to click the trade button on my index funds, right? Actually, in one of these previous meetings, I think it was Sarah who asked how much time per year do you spend making trades on behalf of clients? And I think the average answer was somewhere around 7 minutes or something like that. It's like not very much time because the asset management part of it is a lot of just waiting. The advice is what takes the work, right? So this is the problem. But I think there's an opportunity too, because in the old world, in order to even access the stock market, there are these financial professionals who sat between you and access to the financial market. So when I was born in 1980, if my parents wanted to invest, they had to go to like a stockbroker or a financial advisor or a mutual fund company or whatever. And that is how they would get into the stock market. And by nature of having to talk to a human to get into the stock market, that person would also give you advice. And so this like access to the stock market and advice regarding investing and financial advice more generally were kind of like stuck together because that's just there's like one gatekeeper. But we live in a new world now where the 25-year-olds today just have Robinhood on their phone and they know how to buy Bitcoin and ARK and Nvidia or whatever. And so they have no problem accessing the stock market. But then they have questions. What is this? What should I do with my 401k? I'm getting an inheritance. What's a trust? Is Social Security going to be dead when I'm old? Whatever. And so the access is now separate from the advice. And of course, there are companies like Fidelity and Vanguard who are trying to bundle it still. But I think a lot of consumers are in this world where they like the self-serve nature of accessing investing, but they don't know who provides advice. So I think that's kind of where the industry is at right now. We do have a naming problem. This is one of the infographics I made over on my Instagram at Personal Finance Club. And we all know a lot about the names, but I bet you if you surveyed how many people are here, like 30 or 40 people, I bet you if you surveyed everyone here, we would even disagree about what to call these things. And this is my view of the world. There's like fee-based and fee-only. I think those two are really well accepted in the industry, but that's not what consumers call, which I'm going to show you in a sec. And then there's flat fee advice only. Then there's CFPs, which a lot of people call this thing. A lot of people call this financial advisors, and a lot of people call it fiduciaries. And so all these words are kind of floating out there. It makes this like very complex Venn diagram. And so for a normal consumer to navigate this, and they say, what kind of financial advisor are you looking for? They literally have no idea what it's called. They think they do, but they're not calling it the right thing, and they're not calling it the same thing. And so we have this like communication problem with clients, which is what do we call ourselves, and how do we differentiate a advice only or flat fee advisor? I think those are my preferred terms from a commissioned salesperson. And as evidence of our naming problem, I actually asked this on my Instagram story to my 600,000 followers. I said, if you were looking for a financial advisor who doesn't sell any products, earn any commissions, or manage your money, rather you just pay for their service, what would you search for in addition to financial advisor? Fill in the blank. I'm looking for blank financial advisors. This is the survey results. Number one, fiduciary, fee only. Not a bad answer, but that doesn't cover the manage your money AUM thing. Hourly, pretty good answer, but you can see this is like all the different hourly combined, where this is just the count here. So I should maybe put percent, but you can see fee-based is the fourth most popular answer, which is the exact opposite of what this is. It just goes to show that like, hourly and fee-based are almost tied, and they're, in my mind, polar opposites in terms of the business model. And then just like a smattering of who knows what, like honest, fee for service, personal, reputable, trustworthy. And then advice only is buried down here at number 13. And, and my audience isn't a normal audience. My audience is people who choose to follow a personal finance educator, influencer guy. And so this is like the fact that it's as high as 13 represents, I know Cody's here and Cody's punching a hole through his head right now. He's like, oh, that's what it's called. It's called advice only. But like, still you walk into like a Walmart in the Midwest and ask people what this is called. No one's going to say advice only. No one's going to say it. Just, I mean, so like I said, we don't have a naming problem. All right. So I would get this question, how do I find a good finance advisor? And then I would launch into a pitch. This is like before Nectar. I launch into a pitch and say, find an advisor who doesn't earn commissions, who doesn't sell specific products, doesn't manage your money, just pay hourly or buy the project just for the advice. And when I would give this pitch, the nice thing about truth is there's a ring to it, right? When I would give this pitch, there'd be this like little light bulb that would go off, and the potential clients, the consumer looking for financial advice would be like, oh my gosh, yes, when you frame it that way, that's exactly what I want, because I've always felt uneasy with this, oh, the advice is free situation, or oh, transfer me assets and you need a bunch of money. Like, I just want to pay for it. Like, how simple could that be, right? They said, yes, that's like what I want. I said, they would ask, great, now that I know what I'm looking for, how do I find one of those? And my answer was, I have no idea. I said, I really wish there'd, and I know there's a bunch of people on this call who punch, they're like, I'm one of those. I'm like, yeah, I know they're out there. It's still a kind of small industry. It's fractured. I was like, I really wish there's a place where you could see a list of advisors who just have their price listed right there next to their face, have the reviews, can sort, can search, can filter. And I just didn't think that existed. And so we built it. And so that's what Nectarine is. Nectarine is a flat fee, advice only, hourly. I'm using all the terms now. Financial advice marketplace where you can see the prices right there. So if you go and click find your advisor here, then you can see all the advisors. You can see their actual rates there. You can see their actual reviews. Um, you can book directly on the site. So if I clicked on Adam's profile here, I can book an hour, I can book a plan. You pay with your credit card when you're booking. It's like just the most simple, transparent, A to Z way to access a flat fee financial advisor that I have been able to invent, which is maybe not the best way, but it's the best that we've done so far. And yeah, when you book an hour, you get a Zoom meeting, and then after the hour, the advisor sends you like a nice little wrap-up email with all these like actual to-do lists, and then that's like the end of the engagement. So from the advisor perspective, it's kind of cool in that you basically show up, a meeting's on your calendar, you get an intake form, there might be some files uploaded, you can review them, spend an hour with the client, spend some time wrapping up. So the advisor's time is more than an hour, but they get to, set their rate however they see fit for that. And then the engagement's over. And there's very little, other than providing the advice, there's very little regulatory work that goes into it. All that, just all the documents are signed, all the customer support is handled, all the, meetings stuff is archived. And that's what Nectarine is. And so it's at hellonectarine.com. For advisors, I know there's a lot on this call. It's nice because you can just show up, no need for marketing or advertising. You can set your own schedule, like with your calendar, you just block out whenever you want to take meetings. There's less paperwork. You can spend time doing what matters. And Nectarine was originally more of a lead gen. I kind of hate that term, but we were not registered ourselves. We would basically just have links to basically other people's calendars, and the engagements wouldn't be happening under a Nectarine RIA. But that was problematic because every different advisor had kind of like a different paperwork, and every advisor had different state regulatory rules, and some could show reviews and some couldn't based on which states they're registered in. And so we basically decided to become an RA. We got SEC registered. And so now every advisor in Nectarine is actually registered under every advisor in Nectarine is registered under Nectarine, and now all the engagements happen under Nectarine's RIA. Advisors set their own rates. Nectarine accepts the payment with credit card directly on our site, and then we pay 70% of that top line to advisors. With our 30%, we cover support, regulation, legal, technology, credit card fees, all of the overhead and headaches associated with running this kind of business. And then we have had a ton of demand from advisors. And so if you're someone who's like, yeah, put me on Nectarine, I just need to temper expectations because we've had many hundreds of applications and we've onboarded. It's like way less than 10% at this point. Okay, that is everything, all my prepared remarks. And I know a lot of this has been Q&A. I'm like more than happy to answer questions. Yeah, maybe if you want to raise your hand, I don't know. When I do my Zooms, I have people raise their hand that I can hold people in order, or you can put in the chat.
Here's what I want to know. It's me, Sarah Grillo. How did you get 600,000 followers on Instagram?
How to get 600,000 followers on Instagram? Here, I'll show you. I think when people, I'll say there's two big reasons I can think of. One is consistency. Most of the time when people ask me that, they're like, I've posted 75 times. I only have 1,500 followers. And I'm like, you had way more followers than I had when I posted 75 times. And you can see I posted 2,055 times. So that's number one. is just consistency. And so in 2019, I woke up and I was like unemployed, early retired, whatever you want to call it, and decided to, um, I was a computer programmer, awkward, nerdy, no sort of showbiz or influencing experience. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do something out of pocket. I'm gonna become an influencer. And I was like, I'm gonna post every single day for a year, 365 posts in a row, with the goal of hitting 50,000 followers in a year. And I thought 50,000 was such a massively big number that if you hit 50,000 followers, you were like, I don't know, in a mansion with an infinity pool with just champagne pouring over your head, influence the world. And it turns out it took me like 54 weeks or something. It took me like till middle of next January, and I hit 50,000 followers. It turns out like no one gives you any money, like nothing actually happens. It's just almost exactly the same. Like you get a few more DMs and stuff like that, but nothing magical happens as a direct result of having the followers, but certainly gives you um, a a soapbox from which you can speak. So yeah, number one is consistency, and number two, I'd say, is the number one mistake I see is people using Instagram or social media as an advertising opportunity. And so saying, hey, look at my service. This is what I do, talking about themselves, looking for clients, whatever. And it's just humans these days have this insanely good ad filter. And anything that just hints to be an ad immediately is invisible to them. Like they can't even see it. It's like it's invisible. I don't know a better word for that because you can show them one of your posts in this feed, and if it looks to be an ad in the first glance, and then you ask them about it 4 seconds later, they won't even know they saw it. It's like invisible. So you can't post ads. You have to provide value. You have to purely help. And so like you see my posts like this was actually I've done this is a little bit embarrassing. I've done a terrible job posting lately because this is way back on June 23rd and I haven't posted as regularly this last couple of weeks. But people were asking me, is the stock market going to crash during war? And so I like did this analysis and I was like, all right, here's the major US involved wars and here's the date they broke out and here's the 10 years after. And, uh, you know, they've all been good 10 years, is that going to happen this time? Who knows? I post these long captions that kind of like give more context. Um, you know, Here I talk about fees, index fund, managed fund, high fee advisor, when to buy, invest how much. It's just like simple advice, but all like rarely is it an ad. And when it is an ad, it's kind of like I think it's Stephen Covey who says like imagine relationships as like a piggy bank. And when you're like giving, it's like making a deposit in a piggy bank. And then when you ask for something, it's like making a withdrawal. Like I feel like every post I make is like a nickel or a quarter in the piggy bank. That's like a giving post. And then when I'm asking, it's like taking out like $10 because every time that you're asking for something, people are like, ew. So yeah, that's how I approach content creation.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you so much. More questions here. My question would be, how did Nectarine get SEC registered so quick? That's awesome.
Um, when we originally, and I saw Cody had his hand up too, so maybe we can call on Cody for the next question. If you want to come live and unmute, or you can put questions in the chat if you want. Thank you, Cody, for breaking the ice with the hand raising. Yeah, so when we originally launched, we launched in about a year and a half ago in February of 2024, and we were not an RIA at all. We were just a find a advisor website. And we were taking money. We were kind of like tech enabled. We were taking the payments and we made a big splash. We launched on Instagram. I made one of those $10 withdrawals from my piggy bank that I've been making quarter deposits to for the past year. I said, hey guys, I'm working on something big. I blah, 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 blah. I really, and then, and then the first, I forget the exact numbers. I think the first 2 months we made like $100,000 at $150 an hour. And at that point, like 99% of our leads were from my Instagram. Today, maybe like 10% of my leads are from our Instagram. Like my Instagram is like not our main source of leads anymore. But but basically we had like 1,000 clients, although they weren't actually clients. But we realized like, okay, we could probably hit this 15 state de minimum SEC regulatory bar pretty quickly. And so then we just did it. Like I have two co-founders. Shane Sedaris is like the best financial advisor I've ever met. Actually, now I keep saying Cody's gonna make, oh no, he's not. I'm better. He's among the best financial advisors I've ever met, and has his own RA and has some more experience in this. And so he's kind of our chief compliance officer. And then we have a legal firm, and we just figured it out and got it in like, the first year. Cody, what's your question?
Hi. First is I want to know you didn't really share like the what's happened since then, right? Like to the like the success you just mentioned briefly there on like the first few weeks, but kind of over the last year, like how has that gone? I think I would love for people to hear like the demand for that type of service, like the 1 hour at a time slash project, and then also what I found is like probably I'm guessing that most of your kind of ironically most of your like the clients now that come your way are actually free referrals from other advisors who can't serve them. So I think I see Nectarine mentioned on like on everywhere. Anybody's looking for advice, like there's gonna be at least one comment in there, someone saying, "Hey, check out Advice Only Network or Nectarine." Like those are the two that just keep popping up. So I guess like how has it gone? And then second, like how have you received clients since then?
It's gone very well. I don't know when people ask how it's gone, like uh, in one metric, it's gone poorly because I personally have made $0 from Nectarine. I have not taken a single penny in, you know, draws or income or anything. Um, but on the flip side, we've served, let's see, we put it on our website here. We've served over 5,200 clients in the last, whatever it is, 16 months or something. We're doing about $100,000 a month right now in top line sales, which is about double or more where we were at this point last year. Um, we have a full-time software engineer, and my other two co-founders are taking a salary. And so we're supporting, a staff of three on the overhead side. Um, and it it definitely feels like um, I've started other companies before that felt more like dragging a tire through mud, where you're like, okay, I'm gonna grab this rope and pull the tire through mud, and enough determination and grit, you're gonna make progress eventually. Like that's just how it starts. This was more like paddling into a wave for me, where it's like I was like, wow, this feels like, and this call is a perfect example. Like it feels like a movement. It feels like I can't imagine a world in 10 years where there's not a big shift away from commissioned insurance salesmen calling themselves financial advisors, and even like AUM firms, just looking for high net worth advisors towards a more flat fee advice only model, because I think more people are looking for that. And so it feels like we're paddling into a wave, and we're missing a lot of the wave, frankly, because we need to be moving faster. But yeah, going pretty well by all those metrics. We have 22 advisors on the platform right now. And like I said, we have a lot more interest, and we're basically onboarding as unique experiences or demand dictates. Um, yeah, that's how it's going. What was the second part of the question,
Your
Cody?
your source of referrals from other professionals.
Yeah, we do ask on every single intake form how you heard about us, and we're new enough that almost everyone seems to know the answer to that. Although when they don't know, it makes me especially happy because it's just like they're like, oh, I just know. But we get, I'd say like a financial advisor who couldn't take my business told me about you is pretty small. I'd say like, way under 5%, probably closer to 1%. Like Google is big, Reddit is big, social media is big, like non-Jeremy social media, like, like you were
The
saying, just
Facebook groups, yeah.
yeah, Facebook groups and random Instagram stories and things like that. Referrals are big, internal corporate Slack channels and things like that. And so it's like a lot more early adopters who are aware of
A thousand
this.
true fans concept type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would hope, I don't think we're maybe, maybe we have like 20 true fans, but it is that like true fan early adopter thing is like people who know not to, uh, send someone to an AUM or send someone to a insurance salesman who's like, hey, go find this is an easy place easy link I can send someone where they can literally buy with a price they can see right there. So I think that's where.
And the chat is exploding.
It's exploding?
Yep, you don't even know. Are the advisors on Nectarine only registered with Nectarine? Or can they continue to operate their own RIA separately?
So when Uber launched, they were able to get a bunch of cars out on the streets by basically contracting with these black car services. These are like fancy taxi services essentially where rich people would call for an airport ride at a certain time. But these black car services had a lot of like downtime between their scheduled rides or whatever. And so Uber was like, hey, during your downtime, put our app in your driver's cars, and if they turn it on, they can accept a ride, and if not, they don't. And they can kind of quickly got a fleet of, at least dozens, if not hundreds of cars in the Bay Area where they started. We kind of took a similar approach where most of our advisors in this first wave still operate their own RA and are dual registered under Nectarine. And so when someone books them through Nectarine, then they do a Nectarine engagement. And if someone goes to their homepage and wants to do whatever, then they do whatever through their homepage, where it definitely provides a little bit of the rule is like you can't sell Nectarine clients. Like if a Nectarine advisor was like, hey, psst, what I can save you, it's like an Uber driver turning around and be like, hey, you want me to cancel this ride right now and you just pay me in cash? Like, we don't want that to happen for many reasons. Like, of course, that's not how we get paid, but also it's like a bad experience for the client. Also, it creates weird regulatory stuff, yada, yada, yada. So, if they were doing that, we would just take them off the platform, but still it creates this like little conflict. And so we're probably going to be moving more towards having solely enroll or registered advisors going forward. And we do have some of both right now. We do have some that are dual registered, like largely with their own RAs, and some that just do their whole careers from Nectarine.
Next question. Do Nectarine clients pay for any work outside of the meeting, prep work or follow-up, etc.?
Can I share my screen again? I'll take it down
Sure.
if it's getting boring. I'm just such a visual person. So right now we only have two services, the hour and the plan. And we have constant internal debates about like what are we doing here? Like what's the best way? And there's a thousand ways you could do this. You could just send them an invoice after you're done. You could bill them every 6 minutes like a lawyer does. You could you know, set up custom flat fee quotes based on what their needs. You could do free intro sessions, and then bill them quarterly based on how much they use. There's a million different ways you could do this. You could have different tiers, and we've discussed all this, and we're trying to keep it super simple. And this is what we've come up with so far. And it's not perfect. I'm not even sure if it's probably good. It's probably at least okay. I don't know, but we have two services. One is the hour, where it's literally you book an hour. We can go through it together here. Click on advisor. You choose you can see their price. You agree to the terms, which is how we do the whole regulatory stuff. And then here's Tommy's calendar. Like we could go at 4 p.m. today, and 5 hours from now we could go beyond the horn with Tommy and be getting financial advice. Then after this, you would pay. You can see it. You put your credit card number in right there, and that's it. And so, Tommy makes 70% of $200 for that. And I think on average, advisors probably spend about an hour and a half per the hour engagement, maybe like 10 minutes of prep work, reviewing intake forms and stuff like that, and then probably 20 minutes of note taking afterwards. And so, Tommy gets to set his own price. He's like, what's it worth to me? What's the market at? Yada, yada, yada. This is nice because it's really, you just saw how easy it was to do. Like you can literally just put your credit card number in and be on the horn a few hours later. But it also isn't like comprehensive financial planning, a lot of times people, sometimes they're like, can you look at my 401k and make sure I'm not messing anything up? Like you can really crush that in an hour. Like, hey, yeah, you're not messing anything up, or you should consider this based on what else you showed me in your other accounts or whatever. But sometimes they'll say, hey, can I retire in 10 years because I've got 2 investment properties and I've got inheritance coming and I've got some RMDs on the horizon and yada, yada, yada. Like, that's something that's very hard to do in an hour with any sort of accuracy. And so we introduced the plan, and the plan is an 8-week engagement where, again, advisors, like these rates right here are live, and that if an advisor were to log in and update their price right now, then this this page would automatically change based on what the market is currently doing right now. And I say the market, I mean like the 22 advisor market in Nectarine. But yeah, you get like an 8+ page custom financial plan, 8 hours of planning analysis, 5 hours of document review, 3 1-hour meetings, 4 hours of implementation help, and unlimited email for 8 weeks. And so it's basically like more of a, as Cody Garrett says, I know I'm just name dropping him all the time in this hour, but he says like, upload everything with a $sign on it. We're going to put it all into financial planning software. We're going to run the scenarios that make sense for you. We're going to make a much more detailed plan with, the series of, meetings. Like we got this kind of timeline. Here's like what some of what a plan might look like. Yeah. So in this case, and still a flat fee though. So again, if I go and look at, if I go find an advisor and click on, who should we click on? Kelly. Kelly charges $3,000. So she's going to make 70% of that, and probably going to spend more on the, to the tune of 20 to 30 hours doing a full financial plan.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you so much. Next question. What are some of the main attributes you see in Nectarine advisors who are most successful?
It's interesting because like we're super transparent. I don't mean to keep name dropping that word either, but you can see some advice, some clients here have had, John's had 128 meetings, Elaine has had 41. Right now it's sorted by next available. You can see like when each advisor is next available. Like there's Tommy's 4 p.m. meeting. We saw that was open. Here's Devin's 12:45. But then down here, like these are the advisors who are booked up. So Adam's booked out till September now. That's crazy. And he's done 718 meetings. And, I'm hesitating because I'm like, it's a little bit of a mystery to us too, and I think it's like, it's almost like asking the question, like, how do you do marketing? It's like, I don't know. Maybe they maybe like his face. Maybe they're looking at his review score. Maybe they're looking at the number of years of experience in these 3 little bullets. Maybe this frequently rebooked tag that we got him helped. Maybe
Jeremy, do you do any feedback or surveying of the clients?
Asking what, like why they chose the advisor?
Or what was your experience working with Adam Coleman?
Yeah. Well, that's what these reviews are. And so you can see like Adam's had 227 reviews. And then here's a little AI. We've got AI on our site now. Here's a little AI overview of what they said. And then you can literally see like his Venn diagram, this is insane. Not every advisor is like this, but he's never received a non-5-star review. And so, and in my mind, this is like the perfect feedback loop, which is like when someone says they want a good financial advisor, they want someone that other clients have had good experiences with, right? And, anywhere we put reviews, we have to put our little disclaimer that's like, we don't pay for, filter, or hide any client reviews. Each advisors, I mean, you can read this if you want. And so they can see, they can sort of like, if we go to an advisor that has like a like 5-star review, like, not bad, 4.86, but then, Sarah's got like a more reasonable looking Venn diagram in my opinion. And then you can sort by the lowest, and you can be like, oh, she suggested life insurance, which I think was a misunderstanding, but that's how it goes. And so you can see like some of her less good reviews aren't as glowing, even though she still had mostly 5-star reviews. And you can see the overview here. So, that's that's a part of it too. And I really, sometimes I wish we had more negative reviews, because what I want to have happen is like the best advisors to succeed, and for the lower performing advisors to be incentivized to do better work, not to, have a better profile picture or whatever. But yeah, it's a
Okay.
combination of all those things. We also have filters. So, for example, if you filter by like, whereas tax planning is a popular one, and retirees, you know, and let's see, uh, Roth conversions, 401k. You can see there's actually 9 perfectly matching advisors, and so these 9 advisors match all 4 of those filters. And advisors are limited to what they can choose, and so you can see in these filters you can kind of hone what you're looking for. And I think, if you have more unique filters that match more unique searches, you might get more bookings.
Okay, Jeremy, the chat is still exploding here. So next question, are people interested because of the pricing or because of the offering or both? Would they still use the service if the prices were higher?
We did look at kind of a quick Econ 101 study of how much lower price advisors are getting booked compared to higher price advisors. If you sort by lowest price here, you can see, we're down to one advisor charging 150. So when John changes his price here, the price range on our homepage is going to change. But we looked at like basically the chart of how frequently a advisor is booked and their price, and it turns out that the price elasticity curve that some of us learned about in Econ 101 is still in effect. People gravitate towards lower prices. That said, Adam, that one who was booked out till, where'd he go? Did our, ooh, I think my sorting was broken.
He was on the right side.
Yeah, I know, but he wasn't in order of.
You have filters on.
Oh, I
over
have
up top.
filters on. Oh, thank you for telling me how
Yeah.
my price works, how my website works. I actually built this website too, which is why I should know. There's Adam now that I'm more excited. Yeah. So yeah, he gets booked a ton, obviously, and he's the most expensive, or tied for the most expensive. So, I do think there's a lot of peer pressure among our advisors now, because they're all looking at what everyone else is charging. And when we originally launched, this price was set at 150. Like everyone charged one, like we didn't let advisors set their own price. It just was 150 we chose. And then we introduced variable pricing. And I still think there's like this 150 anchor in people's minds. I think if Adam switched to 500, I think he'd still get booked about as much. And not just Adam. I mean, we have like tons of all these advisors that are booked way out are getting that kind of demand. And if you look at the plan pricing, some advisors are charging, 4,500, 3,700, 36. There's more significant prices for the plan. So I don't think, I don't know, but I don't think our main draw is just that it's like a bargain basement advisor. I think the main draw is that in this like app world, click to buy, Uber of blank world, it's a way that you can like see the profile, see the price, put in your credit card, buy all in one place without this fear of how are they making money? Is there going to be a sales pitch? Yada, yada, yada. So I think that's the main draw.
Next question. Is a Nectarine advisor required to be a CFP? Now I see non-CFPs. Other than fee-only hourly project model willingness, how do you determine if an advisor is qualified to be on your platform?
So no, they're not required to be a CFP. They're not required to have any specific designation. This Snow, by the way, one of our engineers put that in just for advisors. I need to tell him to turn that off, because like when I'm giving a demo, it like happens. He thinks it's just for admins, but I'm like logged in as an admin, so it happens. So Lillian has all these letters after her name. Some people have no letters after the name, like Michelle. Um, you know, I think a lot of you would probably agree that I haven't found a strict correlation between this designation means you're almost certainly be good, and not having it means you're not good. I think CFP certainly is like the most well-known and is the best swing at separating good from not good, but there's lots of false positives and false negatives. So we don't require any specific designation. In our experience talking to consumers, like they literally don't care. They literally don't care. Don't know what it means. Don't give any weight to it. Some of them call this thing we're looking at a CFP, but they're like, oh yeah, they would say Michelle is my CFP, you know, without even noticing that she doesn't have that designation, right? So they literally couldn't care less. In fact, like one of our, I think Kelly has a CFA and just got her CFP, and I was like, you're doing way more for CFP than CFP is doing for you, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, then how do we determine? Basically, we use the bar. Would I refer my mom to this person? We interview them. We interview them. We look at our needs and we say, would I literally refer my mom to this person? And we go through a mock interview and we look at their, we interview them like we would if we are hiring for a full-time job, right? And I'm not going to sit here and say that we've solved interviewing, because like even the best companies in the world, interviewing and hiring is a really hard job, but we do our best, and that's our bar, and we don't use any sort of designation. I see a couple of hands raised. Can we go to those, Sarah? Tom, I think, is next up.
Yeah, this was Eileen's question. So Eileen, is your hand still raised? That was Eileen's question. So I'd rather have Eileen first. Okay. Sorry, Tom.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Congratulations, Jeremy, on all of what you've built. I followed it, since I've heard of what you're doing, and really respect what you've done here. So I just want to ask a little bit more about this, because originally I was asking just about the CFP, and on this interview process, I'm really curious then, take it a little further. Would my mom want to use this person? Give me a little bit more of an example of the nuts and bolts that come to that. Is it time in the industry? Is it experience? Is it their demeanor? I just want to get a much better sense of when that person, what really is that bridge for who comes on and who doesn't under the current world of what you're doing. But again, congratulations on what you've built here. It's
Thanks.
a fantastic offering.
Yeah, full disclosure, I don't actually do the interviewing almost ever. My two co-founders have taken that part of the responsibility. Like if you have any questions about the website.
I've been interviewed, by the way, if you're wondering.
Okay, maybe Cody can give
I can
his perspective. But we basically go through, among other things, we go through a mock engagement and pretend to be a client with a specific set of a scenario, and that's like of relative complexity, and then ask the advisor to give this mock client advice as though we were doing like an hour engagement. And I think, and we have like, I think 4 or 5 metrics on which we score them, like, expertise, domain knowledge, demeanor, educating skill. I forget what they are. I'm like embarrassingly like not that experience, like not that knowledgeable about our own process in this specifics. But basically then we score them out of 5, like, okay, some like, some know tax code in and out, but talking to them is like a terrifying experience because they're mean or something or whatever. And that is important, right? That's part of being a financial advisor. It's like a lot of times this is more therapy than it is like tax code lookup or whatever. And so all those things matter. And then basically we scale them. And then if we think that they're someone who's going to like consistently deliver a 5-star experience, and we'd refer our mom to them, then we bring them on. Demand.
Thank you. That helps. I understand that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks. All right, Tom, you've raised your hand.
Thanks for taking my question. I think I answered my question. I guess this is really neat. I guess my question was more along. I answered it myself. Was the plan is the plan? So in other words, the way my brain was thinking about this, I have a couple one-off kinds of things that I do for clients, and the problem is that they're more than an hour, but they're way less than 8 weeks. And I'm trying to think, okay, so if this was something that I was doing, I can say, okay, I'm going to do a Social Security analysis for instance, which is probably a 4-hour engagement at the most, all in. How would I work that in here? It obviously doesn't. So that's how I answer my own question. But what question maybe you could answer, maybe not live, but maybe share with us some of the demographics of the the ages and the types of folks that are, and the types of help that they're looking for, that the clients that come in, that kind of statistical information, I think would be helpful, certainly for a lot of folks. I mean, I typically work with older folks, so the younger folks, I'm not necessarily, my daughter won't take my advice, so it's hard if I'm trying to deal with folks your age. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I think that we do have a slightly younger demographic than like a typical financial advisor. I'd say that and I don't have the chart in front of me, but from my memory, it looks kind of like a bell curve. And we have had I think we've had a 19-year-old or a 17-year-old client. I don't know if maybe not 17. I don't know if that's even legal, but we had like a teenager, and we've had people in their like late 80s, but I'd say it peaks in like the late 30s, like the bell curve with like kind of the peak in like the main working career. So I think that the avatar of our typical client is like a high income earner, largely DIY investor, although I don't love that because I want anyone to be able to get financial advice, even if they don't, aren't a competent trader or whatever. But yeah, and kind of an early adopter in this world. A lot of tech employees, a lot of high net worth people, like, uh, an AUM firm would salivate over our like lead, our our customer base. But we ask net worth just out of like, demographically intake form stuff. But like of these 5,000, like many, like maybe half are millionaires or more or whatever. Just because people who are in the business of paying $150 per hour for any sort of service generally have a lot of money. When I was broke, I wasn't hiring professionals, right? Um, and yeah, so I'd say that's kind of like our demographic. And yeah, I kind of agree with you that like the 4 hour one-off engagement doesn't fit well into what we're currently offering. Someone, we can probably make it work, and we do have the ability to create a custom plan. So Tom, if you were here, like there's a little start a plan button for advisors, and when they click that, they can set their own price, whatever they want. And so even though the forward-facing service is this, we can do a 4 hour engagement for, $1,000 or whatever you wanted.
Okay, well, that certainly helps. And to your comment about, the bell curve in the far tail, I guess, being, close to 50-year-olds, because that's probably when they probably start to need, more ongoing advice from what, many of us are probably doing. So they can't get that necessarily, doing a new, they're not going to do the plan, every other year, I doubt. Well, I guess maybe that could work. I don't know. I'm just rambling, but yeah, no, that's good. That was helpful. Thanks very much.
Okay. Julia's got her hand up. Do you want to unmute Julia? Did you not have a question?
I lowered my hand.
Oh, okay.
I
I'm
lowered
sorry.
my hand, but I didn't unmute. So yeah, to echo everyone else, thank you for sharing this platform and creating what you're creating. I really do think it fills a need. You highlighted it. One of the other questions I had was on accommodating someone who books for an hour and thinks they know what they want to solve, but really they have this snowball. That's what I've seen in my practice. That's one of the biggest challenges is I kind of, equate it to almost like the Steve Jobs effect of they don't know exactly what they want to solve, but they know they've got things. And so creating that flexibility to make your engagements bigger than just 1 hour is fantastic. But to piggyback that, I'm kind of curious, do you create behind the scenes community within your advisor network to support one another? Just learning and best practices so that people can continue to grow on how to serve this growing space of kind of hourly one-off questions.
Yes, that's like a qualified yes with we're still a young company. And so I hesitate to be like, oh, we've got this like super rich community, but every Nectarine advisor has a, Google @HelloNectarine account. And then we have a, advisor chat section in Google Chat or whatever it's called these days. And it's like extremely vibrant. Like, it's really cool to see like, hey, I have an Oregon tax question, or even like trading of clients, like, hey, like this person isn't signed up with me, but it actually doesn't really match my expertise, like who would fit better, or yeah, continuing education, meetups. We've got several, we're nationwide, but several advisors have found their ways to hang out with each other either at conferences or because they live in the same city and whatever. And so it's like it's actually, I think, good and going to be a lot better because I also, another thing I like about Nectarine is that there's the whole Malcolm Gladwell like 10,000 hour like reps are the most important thing. And when he talks about the Beatles weren't great because of their natural raw talent. They're great because they had this weird thing where they were doing 2 shows a night for 5 years in these little tiny like Liverpool clubs or whatever, just giving them this insane amount of reps that then made them naturals where they like got to the higher level. I feel like Nectarine has a little bit of that too, where it's like you're just getting reps instead of like, spending 80% of your time trying to like, hawk down a high net worth client to get them to transfer their assets to you. You're booking 700 meetings or whatever, you're 700 clients. So I think that there's an aspect of that that's going really well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you see financial advisors as being your primary clients or the end consumers as being your primary clients?
Today, I would say the end consumer, but we want to expand this to have this tool be more valuable to more financial advisors and even like power your own practice through your own website without having to even use the Nectarine branding and things like that. And so right now we definitely are a portal for clients to land on. But we consider ourselves a fintech company that's quickly building financial planning software and advisory support software to run a flat fee advice only business. And so I think we're going to be trying to serve many more advisors in the future.
Next question. Do you have a breakdown of what percentage of the 5,200 clients selected hourly versus financial planning engagements? Can people start with hourly and then go to the financial plan if it looks like it's going to take more time than originally anticipated?
I feel like I have to qualify all my answers with like this is a work in progress. The plan didn't even exist until late last year, and so of those 5,200, almost all of them have just booked, an hour or a few hours. I think we're in the realm of I think a couple hundred plans at this point. So 5,000 out of the 5,200 haven't done a plan. And yeah, the upgrading to the plan workflow is also something we're honing. Where sometimes we like discount people the hour and say, hey, if you book an hour and you want to upgrade, then the plan will be an hour less cost or whatever. Sometimes we're figuring that out, but for sure, I think it was Julia who mentioned just now that like it's typical for someone to come in and say, "Hey, can I retire in 5 years? Here's the 17 things in my brain," and you get through one or two of those things, and you're like, "Okay, like if you really want to know the answer to this question, like we're gonna do the best we can in the hour because that's what you're paying for. But if you really want this question, like let's talk about the plan."
Next question. If an advisor have there ever been issues with advisors getting frustrated about being just a quote unquote ticket taker versus the need for a more holistic review to fulfill the fiduciary duty?
Not to my knowledge. We've had very low advisor turnover. I think, ask the advisors because you're asking like the guy that, runs the marketplace or whatever. And so maybe those complaints don't get voiced to me as much. But I think the overwhelming sentiment is how nice is this to just do what we like doing to provide financial advice? The hours, you know, instead of voicing frustration about not being holistic enough, there's opportunity, like the plan is there, there's an opportunity. And I do think that a lot of people can rebook the hours as needed. And so I think that they like that it's like self-contained and that's the whole engagement without having to like have all these loose ends with an option to have more deep planning as necessary. So I don't think so. I think it's largely been positive, but we're also trying to get better every day a little bit. Oh, Nick's here. Nectarine advisor Nick Booth is here. So yeah,
I'm in it.
Nick can Nick says we have an amazing Google chat with all the advisors, very helpful. I didn't see Nick until I saw his name in the chat. So if you want, here, let's go look at Nick's profile. Let's all read your reviews together, Nick, okay? It's public information now. Nick is booked out until late July. 4.98, very good. He's on lunch. There's Nick and his beautiful family. We have a lot of newborns in Nectarine, including my 4-month-old and my co-founder is 1-month-old. And so we're all very tired. And then, yeah, look at Nick's incredible histogram here. How are we doing on
Okay.
time, Sarah? I always try to be
Oh
respectful.
my gosh,
of
it's
your-
already 2 o'clock.
I
Do
know,
you have
time
to run
flies.
away?
I don't have a hard stop, but I like to at least like give people now if they want to. I mean,
Okay,
if they
yes,
want
it's
to.
2 o'clock, everybody. If you are considering, if you have to leave, again, like I mentioned before, please consider the immersion. I just put the link in the chat. If you have appreciated the transparency movement, please consider making a contribution and supporting our development of future resources, suggestions for future speakers. We have a lot of products being rolled out here from this group, so please just stay up with the newsletter. I have a weekly newsletter. And yeah, I see some people exiting, but we're gonna keep the party rocking on because the queue is still full here of questions. So next question. How do you do compliance with all the advisors under you that also have your own advisory businesses?
The dual enrolled thing or the dual, is that not enrolled, the dual registered thing. Their other advisory business has very little to do with us other than we list it as an outside business activity. And then in terms of our compliance, we basically are building software to make this possible. It's not something I can share on my screen, but for every client, we have basically a regulation report that includes all the contracts they agreed to, when, from which IP, from which device, all their engagements, who they met with, the notes, so basically like on one page when the SEC comes knocking and says, prove to us this person paid you this money, yada, 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 we can like provide this PDF and say, here's the report of this entire person's Nectarine experience, with hopefully limited, effort on our behalf. That said, regulatory stuff is a lot of work. There's the SEC in our experience has been very, very easy to work with. Mostly, like they're definitely responsive and smart, thoughtful people, which is really nice. But they also ask a lot of like federal bureaucracy kind of questions that like don't, they're looking for Bernie Madoffs and they're looking for $100 billion AUM firms and they're looking for all sorts of stuff. And they ask us questions that we're like, we just have hourly advice. That just, doesn't necessarily make sense to us. And so we try to answer them as best we can.
Okay, next. Do any of the advisors on the platform manage investments for clients outside of the Nectarine platform through their own RIA?
Yes. They can't through Nectarine. Like our ADV is like we make money exactly one way, which is, flat fee pricing. Some do. It is, like I said, kind of this, I hate using the word conflict of interest because there's different levels of conflict of interest, but for sure, like an advisor has AUM with their own RIA and is doing flat fee stuff through Nectarine, like might feel a pull in the other direction. But right now the answer is yes. And like I said, the rule is just, Nectarine is not for lead gen.
Next question. How does the quality of engagement with the Nectarine advisor compare to using SoFi Plus's free advisor service that is included for any SoFi bank checking saving clients?
I don't know. I've never used that service, but in my, I think a more general question or critique would be like, why not call Fidelity and talk to them? Why not call Vanguard? And my answer is like, in a lot of cases, like, yeah, you should. Like, if you don't know how to buy a mutual fund or whatever, but like, I have a lot of money with Fidelity, and so they call me a lot and try to get me to buy stuff. And, a lot of times it's not good stuff in my opinion. And like, I'm not the utmost expert on everything, but like you know, definitely read the fine print and do the math and things like that. I was like, this isn't a good deal. And so, and, you know, I can't speak negatively about SoFi. I have no idea, but anyone that works for a bank kind of has that incentive, in their pocket. If it's purely just a value add that's giving financial advice for free without any sort of strings attached, or but I know SoFi has investment products too, right? So they'd probably be pushing that direction. But I just think there's that conflict of interest that exists, that if you're, like they say, if you're not paying for the product, then you are the product. So I think there might be that there, but I don't know, it might be good, which would be great if people can access good financial advice without the bad stuff coming.
Who looks over these plans for compliance purposes and makes sure the right recommendations have been made?
Well, the advisors are primarily responsible for that, and then we also review them as the Nectarine team. Like, Shane, our chief compliance officer, expert guy, just as with any RIA or any solo RIA, the advisors and the Nectarine team are responsible for that.
If an advisor has a client who goes over the hour because they have a lot on their mind, would an advisor bill retroactively or eat the cost?
We haven't seen that really. I think, there are other engagements in the world like that are probably a lot easier to go over. Like if you're meeting with a therapist, for example, and you usually say, hey, the hour's up, or 5-minute warning, we're in the middle of this RMD thing. I want to make sure that you feel good about this hour. How do you want these next 5 minutes? So we just haven't seen that much. And we record all the meetings, or most of them, unless the client doesn't want me to record, so we can see like the length of every single meeting. And they're all about, some go short, but they're all about an hour. So we haven't seen that, but they wouldn't make any more money. So it's up to the advisor to set their boundaries and cut it off. They can just say they have another meeting.
Do you have an ideal client demographic?
Yeah, one that has a credit card. As Cody says, if you can put your credit card in, then you would work with us. That said, like we're not looking for a certain net worth. We're not looking for, I do think clients who are Nectarine advisors, I think seem to like the clients who know what they're talking about a little bit. They come in, they're like, okay, I'm in the fire community. I've got my own Fidelity account. I've chosen my mutual funds. This is how far I am. Can you help fill in some of these blanks here? Rather than someone who's like, I'm swimming in debt and creditors are coming after me and I want to buy a jet ski and I put all my money in Dogecoin, fix my situation. That probably wouldn't be a great, we're, as a financial advisor, I think we would say, hey, like, here's what I think about Dogecoin. Here's what I think about debt. I think we would give advice, but probably it wouldn't be like a really great experience for anyone.
Jeremy, I have a question for you. You've been uber successful. Sorry, this is not a flex here on you, okay? The facts are the facts that you've been uber successful twice. You retired in your 30s, and now this is also a successful business by most people's standards. Jeremy, what do you see as the attributes that you have professionally, perhaps even personally, I don't know, that have led you to do this? Because what you've done, sorry, again, not a flex, but many people have not even done once what you've done twice.
Thank you. That's very kind. I think the main one is that I'm just sociopathically persistent. And so while, here at almost 45 years old, you can be like, oh, look, you've had 2 successes. You're like, yeah, but that was a lot of days of not being successful for 25 years in a row or whatever. And so, I spent years living on credit cards, there's lots of ways to paint what I've been doing as not a success, but I just don't give up. And if you never give up, like that's why I say is like the 2 things is, one, you just never give up. You just keep churning every single day. And then the second part of that is like, small improvements. And like tell my team, like, we don't need to like solve everything tomorrow. Let's just like make one little thing a little bit better today. And if we make one little thing a little better today, and we make one little thing a little better tomorrow, and you do that for 365 days, that actually has this big cumulative effect. And so, on if and but like I'm no Mark Zuckerberg or whatever, like I have not created billion-dollar companies, sadly, yet. But I think any success I've had has just been from not giving up and just trying to make little improvements every day.
Yeah, I see that. And I think also, would you agree with this too? Perhaps the habits that you create and that you diligently maintain on a daily basis too, because people say that too. Like it's a question of having great habits.
Yeah, like very vulnerably, like I personally am a very streaky producer. Like a few nights ago, my wife was upset with me because I went to work at 10 p.m., in our home office in the other room, and like didn't stop working until 4 a.m. or something, because I was like, and in that 6 hours, like I produced more than I think some people produce in a month. Um, but then some weeks I like feel like shit and just lay on my couch and like stare at the ceiling and think that I'm a loser. And so I'm not like a 6 a.m. ice bath, like shout affirmations in the mirror kind of guy. That's just not who I am. I think when I'm on a call like this, I like can look in the camera because I'm used to the influencing thing now and like feel very engaged. But like the real Jeremy, when this camera goes off, I'm gonna be exhausted because I'm an introvert. And there's a couch that's over there, and like the that you can see in like the messy room that's like adjacent to this little studio that I set up, that I'm gonna go lay on because I'm exhausted from talking to people for an hour. That's who I am. So yeah, in fact, one of my most popular like influencer videos was my millionaire morning routine. And I explained how I like wake up at 6 a.m. and run 10 miles and write my journal affirmations and drink a gallon of milk and make my bed and do a load of laundry and and then I run another 10 miles and do all this insane stuff before like 5 a.m. or whatever. And like it was obviously none of it was true, and people started to catch on how stupid it was as it got more and more absurd, because I don't do any of that.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much. Folks, does anybody have any other questions? I'm gonna pause for 10 seconds before ending this webinar, but I'm gonna end it if no one says anything. This is
I
your
got one
last
comment.
chance, everybody.
Kevin said if reps were the most important thing, broker dealers would be the best advisors. I would disagree with that. It's like comes down to basketball. Like they say, it's not that practice makes perfect. It's perfect practice makes perfect. If you're practicing the wrong thing, they just get really good at doing what they do, which is like, selling mutual funds or whatever. If you're getting reps at actually giving holistic advice, I think then you get better at that. And you can make the critique, okay, you're just gonna get better at giving hourly advice or an hour of advice. Yeah, maybe that's true. But a step in the right direction, hopefully.
And I just add to a couple things there. So first off, love what you've been doing. Have loved the experience that you've been providing. You're bringing a lot of good advice to many, many people. Kelly Palmer, friend of mine, like we've talked about, Nectarine, very early on, Shane and I talked at FenCon like 3 years ago about this. Like, we were just really getting going.
Oh, nice.
And so I really, really appreciate it. My feedback to Shane at the time is still valid, right? Which is I just don't I don't feel comfortable giving an hour advice. I'm an hourly advisor and I won't do it. And the reason is that I don't know the client well enough to be able to give good advice. And so I love the direction that you and Shane and others have moved, which is to have a broader offering, to have a project plan with everything with a dollar sign on that you upload. I think that's a huge step in the right direction. And I just won't do it for an hour.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you know, I largely agree, but I'd say there's also this huge step from not getting financial advice to talking to an advisor right now. And to a normal person, like when Nectarine gets mentioned on Reddit almost every day, and I have like alerts, and just the question that consumers want is like, can't I just talk to someone for an hour? Can't I just pay, so while I like agree, I mean, I wouldn't go so far as that we're doing something like reckless, like you can't give like, based on what I know, like, this is your 401k is all in cash and it shouldn't be because you're 30 and instead you're an aggressive investor or whatever. I think you can give like that level of advice in an hour without like recklessly not knowing the full details of the client or something. And we have intake forms and upload files and stuff, so that there can be more context before any advice is given. But I still think there needs to be like this lower barrier to entry to go from never having talked to a real financial advisor to talking with one. And so I think that having an hour offering is important.
And that's what I saw with the free consultation, as do many other advisors. So
Okay.
it's just a different way of approaching it. I love what you're doing. I think it really absolutely does meet a need in the space. And I just, that's just my biggest challenge, concern.
I'm going to push
Thank you.
back a little, Kevin. This is Tom Duffy. I think I look at that hour as a little bit like a coaching session, because I can't imagine that you're actually going to solve anything. Certainly you could take a look at an asset allocation and say, oh, you might want to, make some things here, but you're not solving a financial planning issue. You're more giving financial advice. When we teach the ethics class, we talk about the difference between financial advice and financial planning. Financial advice is just answering one question. For some recommendations require financial planning, which means you've got to do the whole thing. And so, I think that's a big difference. Is there a lot of here? What I'm seeing that anyway is it looks a lot more like it's a financial coaching. And if it gets somebody moved a little bit further along the path to buying a financial plan, either here or with one of the rest of us, I think that's huge. I think so. Jeremy's done a huge service, and just boosting that. The same thing. I have the same opinion of robo advisors, believe it or not, in that if that gets somebody to get some financial advice and get some clarity on their investment, at some point they're going to want real financial advice, and they're going to hopefully come seek out one of us, not one of who. But so anything that moves people further along that journey, that path to getting financial advice, I think is, especially in something like this, I think it's fantastic.
Completely agree and hear you, Tom, on your perspective. And I just say that the consumer thinks this is financial advice, right? They think that it is holistically.
They think it's financial planning. Financial advice could be one thing. They think it's financial planning. Like, oh, I spoke to a guy for an hour and now I'm going to be able to retire. No, that's not the way it's going to work. And that's part on us if we're doing that hour to make sure that we're, I think, dispelling that notion that, look, depending on the situation, I mean, they might have an excellent financial plan that they've created themselves. Believe it, it's possible, unlikely, but possible. And they just need, that last 4% to get them, of knowledge so that they can pull the trigger on something. So, but I agree with you, Kevin. I've never done hourly financial advice because I don't want to have to try to get to know somebody while I'm running the clock. I've always been against hourly financial planning. But I think this is a good idea.
It scares me too much to give advice without knowing enough of their situation that I cannot get in an hour.
I'm with you on that. I agree.
Kevin, what's your goal in pursuing this debate? What kind of response are you hoping for from Jeremy?
Super awesome question. So the feedback was very much on, Kevin, I appreciate your perspective of reps, right? I think that it's a really good example. There are two ways to work out. One, you can go out and take 25 pounds and take as many bench presses as you possibly want. The other is you go really heavy weight and you have very, very few reps. They're both strengthening. They're both different ways of doing it. I'm just saying that from my perspective, the barrier for me considering to join Nectar Low Nectarine has been the 1 hour requirement. That's why I just won't do it. And so that's the feedback is totally appreciate it. Love what you're doing here. Love that plan. You might have some additional advisors who'd be interested in being able to only do the full plan for that 8+ weeks. Although for me, that's a lot of meetings in that 8 weeks, but I appreciate that other people do that differently. And so that's the feedback I just give is that to me has been, yes, it's great for consumers, but is it great for the advisors?
That's fair. And, we're still building out our services as we speak. We're working on an ongoing support as a third service. And like I said, I think we want to serve advisors better and maybe even not have them have to find clients on the Nectarine website. We could like power their own websites and offer their own service options, but still have all the regulatory and back end support too. So that's something we're working towards.
Okay, everybody, Can we end the meetup, Jeremy? Thank you so much. I'm sorry for making you exhausted.
No, that's me. That happens no matter what I'm on the call, and it also gives me energy too. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor and super fun and nice to talk to you. I got all you guys. Like I'm used to talking to, like clients, consumers, and like personal finance or learners. So it's nice to talk to a room full of financial advisors.
Amen. So Jeremy, we would love to have you at the immersion in March if you could make it. And everybody else, we'd love to have you at the immersion if you have not registered yet. So having said that, I'm going to end the meetup. If everybody could also tell 2 or 3 more people and let's get them coming to the next meetup. Let's take over the world, everybody. One day at a time. Woohoo! Bye. I'm ending the meetup. Have a blessed day. Bye.